Greetings YouTube, Fuzzfinger here, and welcome back to Final Fantasy IX, our perfect game playthrough. So we've looted Excalibur II. A few people have been asking me actually why it is we're still not levelling. I've had a few comments and a few messages on YouTube and a message on Facebook actually about it, asking why it is I'm not building up our levels on our party. And the reason for that is basically the same reason we haven't been doing it before we looted Excalibur II, and that is we still don't have all of the right gear and spells and abilities that we need in order to max our stats. So for now, we're still going to be building up to that by collecting everything we need, but we will be levelling our party to 99, and I'll be showing you the best methods to do that, but at the moment we still need to prepare ourselves for it. So that's why I'm not yet levelling. In terms of what we're doing today then, I'm going to be starting frog catching with Quina. Now, it's important we start this early on after the Excalibur II looting, because as you probably know if you're somewhat experienced with the game, once you catch frogs, they disappear from the area for a certain amount of time, and you have to do other activities in the game in order to get them to respawn. So in total, we're going to need to catch 101 frogs. Once we've done that, Quina's frog ability thing, damage ability, will do maximum amount, which is 9999, once we've caught 101 frogs. Now, you can actually catch 32,000, I think 900 and something frogs, and it's not worth doing that, even if you're going for a perfect game. First of all, the damage of Quina's ability doesn't actually increase, and it would probably take you years, literally years, of playing this game, waiting for the frogs to respawn in order to capture that kind of amount. So since we don't need to go for that amount, we just need to go for 101, which is the only bearing of actually changing anything. And how frog catching is going to work, because a lot of people do get confused by it, is there are 4 marshes, and they're scattered around the world map. I'll show you the location. There's basically one here where I'm standing now, of course. There's one over here. There's one up here. And then there's one down here. So there's the 4 locations of the marshes, and each marsh has its own timer as to when the frogs are going to respawn once they've been caught. So this marsh, which is located on the Blair Pass Plains, has a minimum respawn of 25 minutes. So once you've caught your frogs, that's the minimum amount of time you're going to have to do other things for in the game before coming back here. Some of the other marshes are substantially less than that. For example, one of the marshes has a minimum of just 10 minutes that you need to go and do other things. So it makes sense to do the maximum one first, so that can start building down its timer, or counting down its timer, ready for us to come back later. And very briefly, I know this is a little bit of a boring talking information, but it is important. It's very important that you leave 1 male and 1 female frog alive each time, otherwise you're going to find that the respawn is very, very slow. And occasionally you'll see the golden frog. Now, despite popular belief, the golden frog does have a sex, and it will only breed with a frog of the opposite sex. So it is possible to leave the golden frog and just one other frog of the right sex up, but you do need to determine what the sex of the golden frog is. And I'm going to, if we see the golden frog, show you a trick on how you can do that, since the game doesn't actually say. Now, in terms of the other frogs, you can tell the gender quite easily by the way they look. The colour of that frog is going to tell you. But before we do anything, I do recommend saving your game, since if things don't go as you want, or if you accidentally capture the wrong frogs and leave 2 genders, for example, of the same frog up, then you need to reload. Now, it's also very important not to leave frogs up with the same gender when you leave, because they will actually cannibalise each other. I know that sounds strange, but they actually will, and you can test this by leaving frogs of the same gender up once you leave the area, with only one of the one gender and then multiples of the other. And when you pop back into the area after leaving the marsh, you'll find that they've all been eaten. So we're going to go ahead and select frog catching here, and you can see that some of these frogs have dark lines across their bodies, and the others have lighter lines across their bodies. That indicates the 2 different genders. I'm trying to remember which is which. I think it's the males that have the darker lines, but we'll test that in a moment anyway. Either way, you do need to leave 1 of each. So we'll go ahead and start catching. Okay, female. And after catching your first couple of frogs, you are going to speak to Quail. He'll give us some rewards from time to time. Eventually, he's going to be an optional boss as well. Okay, so the males have the light colour. And actually, I think I've screwed it up. Look, that's why I said you need to save. I didn't realise that there was... Oh, no, it's right. There's a male. Okay, we'll leave that one alone then, and we'll capture these females. So we can capture 2 more of the females, and then we need to leave the area. So just need to catch 1 more female. There's 2 left. We can get this one, and then we've got 1 female and 1 male left in this pond, so we'll leave those to do the business, and we'll come back a little bit later. Now, every time you come back into a pond you've been to, make sure you save again before you do, and the reason for that is if you come back into the pond and the frogs haven't respawned enough, you're actually going to add to your timer by coming back into that pond. So you're better off saving on the world map, going in, and if the frogs haven't respawned, reloading your save game rather than just leaving the pond again. But for now, let's move over to the second pond. Right, so here we are at the next Q's Marsh, and this is the one I'm doing next. The one that's located in the area known as the Lechenta Wetlands, because it has the second longest minimum respawn time at 17 minutes minimum. Okay, so what we're going to do here is, first of all, I'm expecting the golden frog to be present, since it is the first Q's Marsh location that we come to. But it might not be, so we'll check that out first. And if it is, we need to actually keep the golden frog present. There it is, look. And the reason for that is the golden frog actually vastly increases the respawn time on a random basis, so you can't be sure exactly how much quicker, but it is quicker, of the rest of the frogs. But we need to determine what the gender is of the golden frog, and the only way to do that is by following this little trick. So you need to save first of all, which I have done, before coming into this particular place, and then you need to capture all the frogs except 2. One is the golden frog, and the other is one of the other frogs. But you need to just make a note of the gender of the other frog that you're leaving. So don't capture the golden frog, and capture all but one of the others. That's the first step. Right, so a few minutes later, and I've captured all of the frogs, as I said, but we've got the golden frog left, and we've got a female frog left. Now, frogs of the same gender, if you leave them alone, and they're only of the same gender, there's no other genders in here, they're going to cannibalise each other. So we're going to come out of Q's Marsh completely. And we're going to then come back in. And if the frogs are still there, hopping about, these 2 frogs, then we know they're of different genders. However, if we come back and the frogs have gone, then we know they're of the same gender, and at that point we need to reload and leave a male instead of a female with the golden frog. So if that sounds confusing, just bear with me. Hopefully in a moment it's going to make sense. So remember, we left a female frog with the golden frog. So we're going to pop back in now. And what's the situation? They've gone. Okay, so that now means that what we need to do is basically reload our last save game, do the same again, but leave a male frog rather than a female frog. It's a bit annoying, but in the long run it's going to work out, because we're going to be able to keep the golden frog for faster respawns. Right, so at this point, we've now got a male and the golden frog left. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and leave here. And just to make sure I've done everything correctly, I will be saving on a different save file. Okay, so I came back outside. And now we're just going to head back in here. And on this occasion, we should see that those frogs still are there and present. And we know we can leave them. And we would have correctly identified the golden frog. Yes, we have. So we can see the golden frog and the male frog are there. So we know the golden frog's female. We can leave them to it. And this pond should be respawning much faster than it otherwise would. So we'll go ahead and leave at this point. But I'm happy with that now. We can move on to the next marsh. It's only this marsh we have to worry about doing that, or whatever marsh it is that you have the golden frog, because the golden frog can only appear in one marsh at any one time. And so we're keeping it in this one for now. Okay, so I've come to the third marsh next, and I've come to this one here on the northern continent, which is in a place called Donner's Plains, because this is the third longest respawn timer at 12 minutes. And we're just going to do the same thing here. Find the entrance, of course. And there's nothing really special to say about this other than just make sure, once again, you leave one male and one female. Okay, so leave them alone, at least one male, one female, and you'll be done here. Right, so I've just captured my 18th frog in total. So we are getting through this quite quickly, actually. And we've got one male and one female left in the area, so we can finish up with this place for now. And we've got one more marsh that we need to go to. So I'm going to take you there next. But just remember to save outside before you go in. Always save, okay, before doing any frog catching. That's the general rule of thumb. Since you never know, things can go wrong sometimes. It is even possible to capture the wrong gender frog at the end when you can't always see their stripes because of the angles that they're at. So it is possible to make mistakes. Okay, so we're going over to the small island over at the west. So the final pond is over on Leynar Island. I'll just show you that on the map so you can see. This is the final marsh. And this has a 10-minute respawn timer, minimum 10 minutes. But in most cases it is going to be longer for all of these. But they generally keep the order of which respawns first. So once again, there won't be a golden frog to worry about. Unless this is the marsh for you that has the golden frog, of course. So as before, just leave a male and a female frog. Rightio then. So in total I've managed to capture 24 frogs. That was off one round of frog catching throughout all 4 marshes. So we're already a fifth, just over a fifth away to our goal. So not too shabby at all. So that's why I wanted to do frog catching now, so that we can start doing some of the other optional content that we need to do as part of our perfect game. And then while we're doing that, the frogs are going to be respawning, and we can come back then a little bit later on. So if going forward from here, I'm not going to be doing obviously videos of all the frog catching. I might from time to time mention, oh by the way, at this point I've done a little bit of frog catching since things have respawned. But it really is going to be up to you now, going forward, throughout some of the other pieces of content that we're covering, just to come back and check for the respawns. But remember, always save before you do come into the marsh, because if they haven't respawned, or if not many have respawned, there's still tadpoles and that around the place. Then reload your save game and come back later. If you just exit the marsh, you're going to mess up the timer, and it's going to take even longer for everything to pop back in terms of adult frogs. So always leave the golden frog, especially when you know what its gender is. Its gender will stay the same as long as you don't catch it throughout the entirety of your save file. And so it'll just keep respawning those frogs on a much faster basis. So check that pond out or that marsh out a little bit more regularly, but again save before each time. But that's pretty much it. That's the basics of frog catching. Eventually, as you catch enough frogs, you are going to be entering a secret boss battle. So I will do a video on that when the time comes for it. But thanks for stopping by today, folks. I hope this video has been of use to you. And if it has, don't forget to leave a like. And I'll see you soon for more Final Fantasy IX. Take care.